Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Corn Productions. My co-host Stacie here to talk about Earth Abides, Season 1, Episode 1, titled Alone. This is the series premiere of this new series.
Yeah.
Limited series on MGM+. The series description reads as follows. In Earth Abides, when a plague of unprecedented virulence sweeps the globe, the human race is all but wiped out. In the aftermath, as the great machine of civilization slowly and inexorably breaks down, only a few shattered survivors remain to struggle against the slide into extinction.
Ooh, that sounds pretty heavy.
Yes, that is a lot of words also.
That's a lot of words.
That was really complicated. I only slipped up on that once, but
I think you did okay.
Yeah.
Better than I would have done.
Yes. Based on a novel by George R. Stewart. Stewart was born May 31st, 1895.
Yeah.
Died August 22nd, 1980, before either one of us was born. And the book was originally published in 1949. My guess is there's been some updates to that book. In the series.
I feel like we must have updated. Now, I'm going to I never read this book. Apparently, it's considered a classic. I have no knowledge of the book or the
I've never heard of it. But
looking it up, I found like a dozen different book covers of how many times it's been republished. Some of them looking quite,
modern?
I was going to say antiquated.
Antiquated, okay.
The opposite.
Yeah.
But yes, there's modern ones as well. Like there's a book cover that's like coming soon to MGM Plus. Must have been a recent release. But some of the older ones, I was like, oh, this story's been around a while. Apparently,
it's a pretty old book. 1949 was quite a while ago.
But it feels so relevant right now, right? The story of
absolutely.
like, oh, a virus just took out the Earth.
Yep.
Whoops. And even in this episode, like, we're referencing COVID.
We did.
And
a
how,
couple
like,
times.
this is, the next thing after that. So, yeah, obviously there's details like that aren't coming from the novel.
Oh, of course.
So I am kind of curious. Like, I feel like after watching this, I'm going to want to read the novel and see, to kind of compare, like, what was the actual story versus what ended up in this series.
I'm going to guess there were no cell phones in the book.
There were probably no cell phones. I'm going to guess it was not an interracial relationship,
right?
In the 1940s book, which is what we're going to get in this series.
Yes, the character that you're talking about is not actually in this episode. We actually get very few characters.
Yeah,
in this
so this episode, aptly titled "Alone," really just focuses on our male lead for the series. We do have a couple of guest stars in this episode, but we only meet one of our main cast members. So what we do here is we always talk about all the actors in the movies or TV shows that we're talking about. And it was really weird taking notes for this because it's like there's not a lot of people in this.
Right. And also it's like following one person as he's driving around or going here or going there.
It's a very different scope than the type of stuff we usually cover. But so what we're going to do today is only talk about the three actors that appear in this episode.
Right. Yep.
And as we move through the series, we're going to meet other main cast members, but we're going to wait to talk about them until we meet their characters.
All right, so I should actually do the rest of my blurb.
Sure.
The episode description for this episode reads as follows. Ish, a solitary young geologist, barely survives a snake bite. After a coma, he drives to the nearest town only to find dead bodies. He searches for survivors from San Francisco to Las Vegas. There must be someone else left. All episodes were written by Todd Komarski. That's my best guess in that one. He's also the showrunner. He has 5 writing credits and producing credits, as well as 4 directorial stints. The episode was directed by Bronwyn Hughes. He directed this episode and the next one. It seems like the directors took like 2 episode blocks because there's 6 episodes. He has 46 directorial stints in all, including an episode of Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, and The Walking Dead.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Before going any further, I'll tell you a couple things. When this is not a sport-free podcast, so you haven't watched the episode, I recommend you go and check it out, and then come back and give us a listen.
Yes, we're going to give all the spoilers for everything that happened in this episode.
Yep. Secondly, if you're listening to one of the platforms of this podcast is now available on, please follow, and feel free to check out my YouTube channel, Corn Productions, where additional content can be discovered. If you're already on my YouTube channel, please like, share, and comment, and subscribe to our channel. All right, so Stacie, your overall thoughts on this week's episode.
All right, so I enjoyed this episode. So Okay, well, let's give a little bit of background. We cover the series From on MGM Plus,
Yep.
which just finished its 3rd season. Now, we get screeners for that series because we cover it on our podcast. And they just randomly gave us screeners for Earth Abides. Just kind of, I think, like, hey, here's, something else we're doing. So I watched this first episode, just, like, to check it out. And I was like, oh, that was interesting. I think I liked it. So I said to you, like, hey, do you want to, like, talk about this show, too?
Yeah, I mean, why not?
Because, like, I feel like, From people, the Frumily might like this show. And I think I was right. I think a lot of From people are sticking around to check this out. To the point that in the From season finale, they actually gave a 13-minute clip of this episode.
Yes.
That people got to watch ahead of time last week. And, yeah, so I think that's my first opinion of it is I liked it enough that I was like, hey, let's talk about this for the next 6 weeks.
I mean, yeah, basically the main show that we did is done, From.
For the season.
So, so we need something else to cover in the meantime. And Earth Abides fits right into our wheelhouse.
It fits right in.
Yeah.
So this is a post-apocalyptic series. Now, this episode in particular, and we haven't watched the rest of the show yet. We watch as we record. So we've only seen as much as you guys have seen at this point. That allows us to have a more genuine conversation, right? Without us having spoilers from the rest of the episodes. So just based on, this episode 1, it feels a lot like The Walking Dead to me.
Yeah.
Particularly comparing the pilot of that episode to this pilot.
Interesting.
Specifically being, here's the deal. We're following one character, our lead for the series, and they kind of missed the end of the world because they were sick. Like, that's the setup here.
Okay.
In both. Like, the pilot of The Walking Dead,
yep.
We're following Rick, who was in a coma and missed the end of the world. This guy's Ish, which that's such a weird name. I feel like I'm taking these notes, like, his name is really Ish. I'm having a hard time with that. Ish, he's not in a coma, right? It's a snake bite, but same thing. He's just kind of like, he missed the events of the world ending.
Right.
Because he was dealing with his own stuff. So it felt very similar to that. Even as far as to go on where we're just kind of following him, picking up the pieces of what did I miss while I was out? What is the state of the world now?
While simultaneously giving us the pieces as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like we're learning as the main character's learning. It's not us coming into a story and just, getting the backlog. It's us and the main character discovering at the same time, like, oh, what is this world that I just woke up in?
Right.
While, possibly meeting some other survivors and figure out how to survive and figuring out what is this show going to be? Now, the big difference is, of course, this is not about zombies. As far as I know, no zombies appear in this series. At least they haven't yet.
Yeah, I'm getting the impression that that's not what the series is going to be about.
I don't think so, no.
But I'm not totally sure where this story is going exactly.
I feel like this is really just a story about survival and about human connection. Is where we're going with this. Now, I did watch the trailer that MGM put out. They did put out a 3-minute trailer. And I feel like it's a little too spoilery, to be honest.
Yeah?
I feel like the trailer gives us a lot of information about where we're going.
Okay.
Particularly telling us how quickly we're going to progress through time over 6 episodes. It looks like we're going to move quickly.
Okay.
Did you watch the trailer?
I did not.
Okay. So, and this is something... I feel like this past season of From, the same thing. I feel like it's not the season trailer, but like the episodic trailers for each week.
Yeah.
Like the next time on trailers were a little too spoilery this season. I feel like whoever's editing these trailers at MGM needs to hold back a little bit more.
Right.
Because watching the From and I didn't feel this way for seasons 1 and 2 of From, but season 3 of From, like every week I've seen the trailer, and it might be because we are watching the episodes early and we already know everything and we've already recorded about it by the time we see the next trailer.
Yeah.
I'm just like, they're giving away too much. Like, too many of the twists and turns are being revealed in this trailer, and then it's not a twist and turn anymore because everybody knows it's happening.
Right.
And I feel like the series trailer for this is only 6 episodes, and I feel like the 3-minute trailer is giving an awful lot away. about where we're going with the relationship between Ish and the female lead, who, again, we don't meet in this episode, and the life they're going to live together over the next 6 episodes.
Okay, interesting.
And, I feel like they shouldn't maybe tell us that much.
Yeah, well...
going into it.
Why make a 3-minute trailer? Because you're just bound to share too much information. But, do we have anything else to say before diving in?
Okay, so Ish, his full name, according to the book description, we didn't get this from the episode, but his name, according to the book, is Isherwood Williams.
Isherwood Williams.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, when I was taking notes and his name is Ish, I was thinking like Ishmael or something.
Right.
No, his name is Isherwood.
Isherwood. Interesting. That's an interesting name.
So that was a decision, of George R. Stewart.
Yes.
That they kept this name. And Williams, I know they kept, because we do see at some point in this episode his mom's name.
Okay.
And I did take note of that, and it was Williams. So they kept this name from the book. So they're being at least... a
little bit faithful?
A little bit faithful to the story by keeping this really weird name.
Right. I mean, they can't be completely faithful because... I mean, basically, this book was written in 1949, so they do have to modernize it a little bit. I mean, unless you were going to tell an alternate Earth story where basically the world ends in the 1940s or something along those lines.
Yeah, that's definitely not what they're doing.
Yes. Nope. They're doing modern day.
All right, so here's what we do here. We go scene by scene. We're going to talk about everything that happened in the episode. The actors that play the characters as we meet them. Again, there's not a lot of them in this episode. We are gonna meet more people as we progress through this series, but this episode particularly is a very, very bottlenecked on Ish's story.
Okay, so the episode begins with Ish, played by Alexander Ludwig, with 29 credits for him, including Bad Boys Ride or Die, Bad Boys for Life, and The Hunger Games.
He's also in Grown Ups 2. And main character in the series Vikings, which is what I saw a lot of people are recognizing him from. He was in 67 episodes, rather, of that series.
Now, this actor has to pretty much carry this hour of television. And because he doesn't have anybody to play off of, for the most part, he's by himself.
Right.
He does an absolutely fantastic job. He demonstrates himself as a very capable lead in this episode. He does a great job.
I totally bought this character, and I feel like we got to know Ish quite well throughout the course of this hour of television.
Mm-hmm. So he's in his apartment. Presumably, this is before the world ends.
This is before the world ends, and I think it's like some kind of cabin. And again, he's a geologist.
Yep.
He is. He's writing in his journal. Mm-hmm. And so we're hearing his thoughts in his journal that he's about to go to this mountain for the 3rd time. And he's looking for pyrite, which is a type of rock.
Yes.
You don't know that. So I feel like this is just like some kind of cabin where he's doing some sort of a sabbatical. I don't think he lives here like full time or anything.
Gotcha.
But he's probably been here for a while, right? Just kind of engrossed in his work.
Mm-hmm. So he goes out. And then he ends up at some kind of cliff or something along those lines, looking for some pyrite. He's got this rock hammer, and then he finds himself getting bit by a snake.
Yeah, and anybody who's ever listened to us for very long knows that that's my thing. I can't do snakes.
Thankfully, it's not on screen for very long.
I'm terrified of snakes.
Well, this is not going to help you any.
Even just... images on television.
Right.
Okay, so I'm watching this episode for the first time. Again, I have no idea what I'm even watching. I just start watching it. I screamed, jumped. It was almost the end of it for me.
Right.
I almost did not get through the episode. But after I did get through the episode, like I said, I decided, like, hey, this is a good show. So the second time I watched this scene was when I was watching the From finale. And I was like, well, let me play out the what they're going to show, because I want to know like how much of this the audience is seeing, right? So I watched that scene and I knew it was coming, so I closed my eyes. 3rd time watching, it's when I watched the whole episode for the 2nd time to take these notes. And again, I'm like, I know it's coming. I closed my eyes. So I've only actually seen this moment once, even though I've watched it 3 times.
Right.
Because I knew to close my eyes, because I can't even handle the visual of a snake, and just talking about it is like creeping me out.
So he basically takes a knife, tries to cut. I guess he's trying to bleed the poison out of him.
Yeah, so the bite's on his hand, and he cuts a big X in his hand, trying to get the poison out. He sucks it out with his mouth, which I guess is what you're supposed to do for a venomous snake bite.
I don't know. I've heard that that's actually not true, that you're not actually supposed to do that it doesn't help anything.
I mean, it can't make it worse, right?
I mean, fair enough.
See, here's the deal. If I was bit by a snake like that, it wouldn't matter. I'd be dead from a heart attack.
Right.
Because it happened.
Right. So, anyway, he's not too successful. Maybe he gets enough of poison out of him to not kill him.
Yeah, he ends up stumbling home.
Yeah.
But not before he drops his cell phone into the hole where the snake was.
Right.
So his phone, gone.
Right.
He has no way of contacting the outside world. He stumbles back to the cabin. He's barely coherent. And I think they did a great job with the cinematography here and the editing.
Yep.
Where we're getting, like, the whole next sequence is we keep getting these, like...
It's basically a fever dream.
Yeah, it's like these fuzzy, out-of-focus shots, and everything's wobbly, and we don't really know what's going on.
Right.
It's like everything's from his perspective of what we'll eventually learn is the next 3 weeks.
Right.
And watching this scene, it's like how much time is passing, you have no idea. But I don't think he does either.
Right. And at one point, there's a knock at the door, somebody asking if there's somebody in here. We don't figure out who that was, and I guess it doesn't even really matter.
So, contextually, what we can assume after watching this is there are people going door to door. They're looking for survivors because the world is ending. Everybody's dying.
Right.
And what you hear one of them saying, it's like 2 men at the door, and one of them says, "He's sick, let's go."
Gotcha.
Assuming that, he's got the virus, it's already too late for him.
Gotcha.
And they're looking for, trying to help people who aren't sick.
Right.
Because at this point, like, it must not have hit, everybody yet.
Right.
But yeah, he's coming in and out of consciousness.
We see his hand at one point.
His hand's blown up like a balloon.
Yeah.
He's struggling to drink water. Because, you can't go more than 3 days without water.
Right.
That's the whole thing. Is 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food.
Right.
And I appreciate that they went out of their way to show us he is drinking water. Otherwise, he would not survive 3 weeks of dealing with this bed rest.
Right. Some time goes by. He eventually ends up recovering. He gets up. He goes out to his car. He notices his windows are covered in filth. And he ends up driving into town, where he ends up discovering a dead body. And as he's looking at this body, I kept expecting it to come alive and, start going after him.
Because you're comparing it to The Walking Dead. See,
yes.
Even if you don't know you're doing it.
Even if I have never watched that series, that's what I was expecting. I mean, I've also seen, horror movies in my lifetime,
sure.
So,
Couple things I want to bring up before we move on. Before he wakes up for good and leaves, one of the times we do see his cell phone, his mom sent him a text that says, "We love you." So that would have been right before his mom died. Sad.
So his mom sent him to a text which was in the phone that he dropped in the hole.
Yeah, so the snake got the text. He's never going to get that text that his mom sent saying she loves him. That's sad.
That's really sad, yeah.
So here's my question about the car. Would 3 weeks, and again, we don't know it's been 3 weeks yet. The first time watching, it's like how much time has passed.
Right.
We'll eventually learn that the world ended 3 weeks ago. So, or he says, I was out of it for about 3 weeks. Does the state of his car, that much dirt on the windows, he had a hard time starting it, does that feel authentic to being 3 weeks worth of neglect?
I have absolutely no idea.
It felt to me like his car shouldn't be in that rough of shape because he hasn't touched it in 3 weeks.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so, but...
the windows were just thick with, mud.
I mean, maybe it was, raining a lot.
Wouldn't that clean it?
Oh, yeah, you're right. So I'm not really sure.
I got the impression, watching it before we heard 3 weeks, that, a lot of time had passed.
Yeah, months.
Months.
Yeah.
To the point where I was questioning, is there something timey-wimey going on here?
Right.
Did he just time travel 2 years in the future?
Right.
Because his car won't start and it's covered in dirt?
Right.
So that was and again, I don't know the answer to this, but it felt funky to me that his car would be in that rough a shape after 3 weeks.
So the two stores in the plaza, by the way, are CVS and Dave's Discounts.
Dave's Discount Deals is where he's going shopping. Yep. Sounds like a cool store. I'd like to visit there.
It does, yeah. I think I should definitely visit
Now,
that
he
store.
doesn't make it inside the store.
Nope.
So the dead body that he found, that you talked about, it's actually an Amazon delivery driver. Mm-hmm. And the packages, the Amazon truck's there, the Amazon packages are spewed throughout the parking lot. Here's my question.
What happened here exactly?
This guy worked up until the moment he dropped dead?
I guess
so. He's sick with this virus.
Yeah.
And we get the impression that it was fast moving, but why is he at work when he died?
So yeah, that's some pretty heavy dedication to your job for sure. To
right?
keep delivering packages right up until the moment you die.
Like, he had to have been ill at least for a little while.
Right. Yeah.
And then he just drops dead while delivering packages.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing, like, throughout this episode, I'm a little confused about some of these bodies. Like, what are you guys doing? And also, like, the absence of bodies. Like, the streets are empty when he's driving there.
Right.
Why are there not cars everywhere with bodies in them?
I mean, we do occasionally see places where there's a lot of cars and a lot of dead people in them.
But it feels like the streets themselves are very abandoned. Like most people were buckling down. So why is this Amazon driver delivering is my question, if the whole world's just kind of stopped already.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Now, the only other vehicles in the parking lot, there's like some... like military vehicles. So you get the sense that by the time this Amazon driver was here, like, things were already pretty freaking dire.
I mean, maybe he was delivering packages to the military themselves.
I guess. So there's a big, what's that called? I mean, it's a sign.
It's a sign. It's a digital sign.
Like, yeah, there's like blinking lights.
Yeah.
I know there's a better word for that. And it says, due to global pandemic... USA government suspended. Shelter in place. God save the USA.
Yes, that does not sound good.
It doesn't sound good.
So he does not react too well to this. He panics. He starts driving off. He goes to what I assume is his parents' house, correct?
Yes, and on the way there, he's listening to, like, news radio. So before that, he was playing, it was either...
Like a tape?
It was either, like, an audio book or a podcast or something.
Mm-hmm.
It was geology-based, like a pre-recorded something geology.
It definitely was not the Corman Productions Deep Dive TV podcast.
No, it was a boring science thing he was listening to. And now he flipped on, like, to the news radio, but he's only getting pre-recorded messages about sheltering in place, and there's no, like, live radio happening. So, yeah, he goes home to his parents' house.
So, he's nosing around. Eventually, he goes upstairs and finds his dad dead in the bed. And he's not looking too good there. He's looking like he's been dead for quite some time.
Yeah, everybody we find looks like it's been a while.
Right. He finds out he then ends up in the bathroom where he finds his mother dead. She does not look quite the same as the rest of everybody.
So Mom,
she killed herself.
She killed herself. There's empty pill bottles all over the floor. And we get a close up on a bottle of diazepam with her name on it. Roxanne Williams is the mom's name.
Diazepam is like an anti-anxiety medication. It does go into benzo class of medications. I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly. And yes, you could overdose on that.
Yeah. And she had other pill bottles as well. So she took every pill in the house is what she did.
Right.
And my guess is that after her husband died, she decided to end it.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing this is when she texted him and said, "We love you," and then she killed herself.
Right. Wow. Even sadder.
It's so sad. And I have a question too. I wonder if she was immune.
Maybe.
Because we're getting the impression he's immune, right?
Yeah.
Like he wasn't exposed to it because he was like not
around.
He was already sheltering in place.
Right.
But if he was susceptible to this virus, once he went out in the world and was exposed to all these dead bodies, he should have gotten sick.
He would have then gotten sick.
Right, and he doesn't. So
right.
he is immune, right? Because we meet a couple other people eventually. We learn they're immune, so he must be immune as well.
Yeah. Which
means it's possible his mom's immune. If they have, similar, whatever.
Genetics.
Yeah, that's the word. And it's possible that, like, Mom wasn't going to die, but she killed herself because her husband was dead, and she thinks the whole world's dead. And that's even sadder.
Yeah.
If he could have found his mom alive, and they could have, had a life together still.
I mean, maybe if he hadn't gotten bit by that snake, then...
He could have communicated with her and answered that text and stopped her from killing herself.
Right. Wow. That's sad.
I know. Look, see how deep this is?
I know. Wow.
This is what we do. We got to talk through it.
Yes.
Because otherwise it's just, this one dude on the screen not doing anything.
Right. So he goes back to the store.
First he buries his parents.
Yeah,
he digs a big hole in the yard, buries both his parents.
He's like basically angry and sad and in grief all at the same time.
And he's monologuing to us. And I was like, is he writing in his journal again? We do get a lot of these monologues. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a lot of dialogue happening because he's alone.
Yep.
So it's him like just kind of telling us stuff. And I don't know if it's journaling, but I'm guessing that's what it is. We're supposed to be believing he's writing these thoughts down like he was at
Or maybe
beginning.
we're just reading his mind.
Maybe. But remember at the beginning, like he was writing a journal entry about the geology.
Yeah. It makes sense.
And he's talking about the word alone. And he says, he always liked that word. And it means freedom to think and to study and to learn. And he likes being alone.
Well, he has plenty of time for that now.
He says, but now it's too quiet. And he drives, where he goes first is actually a church. And while we're seeing this environment, really, we're as the audience kind of just seeing what the state of the world is, he tells us about what nature does. Remember, this is called Earth Abides. That's the name of this series.
He is talking about how the grass...
He's talking about the earth going on, even if humanity doesn't. So he says, in the first season, the grass grows tall. After 20 years, it would be a jungle.
Yep.
After 100 years, it would be a full-grown forest, and you'd hardly know man was ever there. The whole idea that humans are so insignificant to the earth.
I read a book about something like that at one point, and there was also a series about the Earth Without People that was on some channel somewhere. So,
I'm sure.
So that talked about that very kind of thing where the Earth just takes back over, just like that, basically.
Yeah.
Within a short amount of time.
Well, you know what it specifically reminded him of? He says within 100 years it'll be a full-grown forest and you'll hardly know man was here. That reminded me of the setting of The 100.
Okay.
Which, see, like season 1, because that series changes a lot. But season 1 of The 100 is like, we're visiting the Earth 100 years after man went extinct, basically. Not completely extinct, but like after civilization was wiped out. And that's what it is. It's like, it's a forest, and there's barely even any buildings left anywhere. There's just a few ruins here and there.
I'm pretty sure one of the actresses in this, the one actress in this episode was in The 100.
Not in this episode, but one of the actresses in the series is.
Yeah, maybe when I looked at her, I noticed that credit. I thought it was this actress, but you're probably right.
No, you're right. You are right.
Okay.
Yes. She was, okay. There's one of the guest actresses, and we'll talk about her in a minute. She was in 2 episodes of The 100. But one of our main cast that we haven't met yet is a regular in The 100.
Oh, okay.
So we'll talk about her when we meet her. I don't know what episode that's going to be in.
Probably the next episode, I assume.
I don't think so, because I think in the next episode we're only going to focus on the female lead.
Oh, okay.
She's one of the other actresses in the series.
Gotcha, okay.
There's something like 8 or 10 actors in this series.
Yeah.
Listed as main cast, but we haven't met them, so I don't know when they're coming, but I don't think they're coming in episode 2 other than the female lead.
Probably not. Yeah.
It's very strange, the layout of this show.
Right, yeah. So he by the way sleeps in what I assume is his childhood bed in his parents' house.
Yes.
So was he actually living here? And
I was confused by that. I'm not sure. Because later he'll come back here and he's like, let's go home, and this is the house he lives in.
Gotcha.
When he goes home. But it might just be because it's the house he grew up in.
Right. And basically his parents are dead, so he's now just going to live here because why not?
Like this is his home.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like, what exactly he was doing other than that geology dig.
Gotcha.
Previously. Okay, so he goes to a church.
Yep. He finds a bunch of dead people there.
Yeah, so people kind of fled to the church when they knew they were dying. So this is where, like, again, the streets were empty. At the church, there's a bunch of cars there.
You know what this kind of reminded me of?
A bunch of dead bodies there.
This kind of reminded me of The Stand, which is a very similar story. Like a plague wipes out the earth. Mm-hmm. Both versions of The Stand included a scene where basically there's a bunch of dead people at a church.
Right.
So, and it makes sense because people in these kind of times would want to like seek some answers, some solace. So these people who are religious, maybe even people who aren't, might go to a church to seek for those things.
These are people who, in their last moments wanted to pray and come together. And this is where we're finding a bunch of people, which, it's realistic.
Yeah.
My problem is we aren't seeing that in other places, though. Like, I feel like there should be more pockets of people.
Right. There should be
other places besides the church.
There should be some dead people at Dave's Discounts.
Yeah, besides the Amazon guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he returns to Dave's Discounts.
Yep.
To load up on supplies because apparently something they sell here is rifles and a handgun and bullets and paper towels.
That seems to be all that he's collecting is guns and the paper towels.
Yeah.
I don't.
This is what you need to survive.
Don't you want some food at the same time?
Yeah, they didn't show us him getting any food at this point.
I mean, I know that stuff isn't going to be around for much longer, but take it for now at least, right?
Yeah. Well, he'll come back here again later.
Yeah. Okay.
For now, he says there must be someone left in the city.
Yes.
And he proceeds to the Bay Bridge. Which,
of course, is blocked off. He can't get through, which causes him to freak the heck out.
Yeah, he's not going that way.
Nope. So he decides to, I guess, drive in the opposite direction and ends up in Las Vegas. He goes to one of the casinos, goes to one of the pools. He ends up getting naked. We see his butt. There's some actual surprising amount of nudity in this episode, in which by that I mean any at all, because I was not expecting.
You were expecting any nudity?
No.
We gotta do something to keep it exciting when there's not a lot of
I guess so.
stuff happening with people.
And I gotta say, I'm not into guys or anything like that, but Alexander Ludwig is pretty impressive. He's pretty impressive looking, I gotta say.
Okay.
Anyway.
Now, before we get into what happens next, just want to talk about Las Vegas a little bit.
Okay.
The city that never sleeps is very awake. All the lights are on.
Yes.
Now, at home, there was no electricity. The city was quiet, right?
Mm.
Now that he's here, we got all the flashy lights, the billboards, everything is happening, but there's no people. And it was such an eerie thing to look at. The liveliness of Las Vegas without any cars or people.
By the way, completely beautiful imagery. I do have to question, why are there not more dead people here?
Exactly. That's what I'm getting at.
Right.
Where are the people?
Right.
Now, we are going to get some answers later about the casino itself, specifically the hotel and the casino.
And this is the MGM, too, isn't it?
I don't think it specifically told us where they are. That would make sense.
I think I saw a sign as he was leaving that said the MGM.
Okay, I didn't pick up on that, but that would make sense since MGM made the show.
Yeah.
If they were at the MGM. But yeah, we're really just staying in this one hotel casino for the Vegas scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And, but this was my question. So he goes in, and all the slot machines are on.
Yeah.
They're running, but there's not the floor is empty. There's not a single person here, which is a sight in real life you'll never see. 24 hours a day, there are people on slot machines.
Right.
They don't close.
Mm-hmm.
The floor is always open and always full. And I thought this was so bizarre because my thought is, the same way there were people who want to be at the church for the final days.
Yes.
I'm positive there are people in Las Vegas who are going to want to be sitting at a slot machine for their final days.
Yeah.
There should be dead bodies on the floor.
Yes.
Now, we do learn later from our guest cast that there were people in the hotel. It's very possible they cleared the floor and moved the bodies.
Okay.
But that doesn't answer for me the strip. There should be people outside.
Yes.
There should be cars. There should be dead people everywhere.
Mm.
And it's abandoned.
Mm.
And I'm just really confused by that.
Yeah.
So my note here, when we see the empty casino floor is they must have closed the door to the public at some point, and we'll learn that's not true. But these were my initial thoughts when I was taking my notes, is the casino must have closed because the world's ending, people aren't spending money, they must have closed their doors, right?
Right.
But if they closed their doors, why are the machines still running? Why didn't they turn them off?
So, speaking of which, it's been 3 weeks. How long without people monitoring the power would the power stay on?
So there's generators.
Okay.
We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
And we'll learn from one of these other characters that there's a couple weeks of power left in the generators.
That's right. Yeah, you did say
but
that.
There'd be a whole lot more of it if you turned all these slot machines off.
Right. Yeah, I mean...
Awful lot of electricity being used to run hundreds at least of slot machines.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it seems like if you could extend the time period if you just shut these machines off.
By a lot.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, as of this point, it's just, it's really creepy imagery, but I just found it, taking me out of the story because I'm wondering, what's going on? Why is Las Vegas empty?
Right.
Why are the streets empty?
Mm-hmm.
There should be some death on the streets.
Yes.
Something.
Yep.
And also, my question is, how did they even film this? How did they like, there's only a couple shots, like it's really quick, where we actually see the strip with no out people on it. And most of the scene as he's driving is just kind of the lights reflecting in like the windshield of the car, which I thought was a great choice because it meant they only had to clear the street for a minute.
Right.
I mean, a minute of footage could still take an entire day. How did they do that? Did they literally clear Las Vegas Strip to film there?
Yeah, that would be pretty insane.
How much money? Did they digitally like take all the people in cars out?
They could have done that.
I mean, that just seems like such an endeavor.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we can talk to somebody who created the show at some point, and they could tell us.
And I feel like it's doing a podcast like this is what makes my brain look at details like that. I don't think the average viewer is supposed to look at this and be like, "How did they film that?"
Right? No. That's definitely unique to somebody like us that talks about shows like this for a living. So
he's naked. That's where we're at.
Yeah.
And so he has a naked dip in the hot tub, making a drink at the bar, still naked.
And he finally encounters some living people, but he's embarrassed by his unclothed state. The man is played by, and this is what's his name again? Milton. He's played by Martin Donovan. 122 acting credits for him, including Weeds, which is a show that I used to watch back in the day. He was actually an FBI agent who met a bad end in that series.
Okay.
And the movie Tenet, which is a Christopher Nolan movie. And The Art of Racing in the Rain, which we have talked about quite a few times.
Yes, that is a movie that Donald Hang is in, who we have interviewed, with Milo Ventimiglia. Did I say that even a little bit right?
Ventimiglia, I think it might be.
Something like that.
Yeah.
My notes say Milo V, because I wasn't going to even attempt typing it, never mind saying it.
The star of This Is Us, basically.
Right.
Yep.
So we talked with Don Hang about that movie when we interviewed him. So I picked up on that one too in Martin's credits. He also was in 3 episodes of Firefly Lane. I loved that show. Yeah. All 8 episodes of Archive 81, which was a Netflix kind of weird, timey, creepy sci-fi show.
Did you watch it?
I did. It was an interesting one, but it was canceled after 1 season. So of course. We're not going to get any resolution on that. Right. And he was in The Haunting in Connecticut.
The first, the
real one.
Yeah, not
the one we covered. Right. Part 2, Ghosts of Georgia.
Right. Yeah. The woman, I believe, is Anne, played by Leah Gibson. 51 credits for her, including 6 episodes of Manifest.
Yes.
5 episodes of The Batman. Well, actually, Batwoman. Sorry.
Okay.
And an episode of Psych.
Including 2 episodes of The 100, which we mentioned.
Yep.
And she was in 2 episodes of Once Upon a Time in Wonderland.
Oh, okay.
Which was a spin-off of Once Upon a Time.
Milt ends up giving him a robe and explains that they are not, in fact, married. They make a very specific point of saying that.
They both characters tell him that.
Yeah, yep.
They want him to know. She tells him that Milton isn't her life partner, just her death one.
Mm-hmm. And they explain exactly how the world ended, which was a virus. And there's a reference to Corona here. And he specifically says that they perhaps overreacted to the first virus while underreacting to the second one. Right.
Meaning, like, hey, we went so hard on COVID.
Yeah.
And now that this happened, the government was like, it's fine. And it wasn't fine.
Nope. Spoiler alert, it was not fine.
It was not fine because the world ended. Milton has recordings of some of the news broadcasts on his phone that he shows to Ish to kind of like fill in the blanks of how did we get here.
These were some pretty good recordings, by the way. I don't know that was a standard screen recorder app that he was recording that on.
Well, he's here for business. I don't know what his business was. Maybe it was something techie.
It doesn't matter now because everybody is dead.
Everybody's dead. It doesn't matter. And this is actually a line that happened some point in this episode later on where Anne is talking to Ish. And I actually don't remember which one of them said this, but one of them said this during the conversation. Like, well, you know, once we don't have like our lives to talk about and what we do for a living, and humans have nothing to talk to each other about when, you know, there's nothing happening in life.
Right. I mean, I guess that makes sense. Like, I have things going on, and I barely have things to talk about, other than, you know, doing a podcast, of course.
We have a lot of TV to talk about.
Right.
They just got to go find, some VHS tapes and DVDs, rather, I suppose, and they'll be fine.
You know what? There's a Netflix movie recently that covers kind of the same ground, except it's not a virus. I think it's like some kind of like a war that ends up like shutting down communications. They end up isolated. That's on Netflix. I forgot the name of it. Next week I will bring that up. I'll be sure to get the title of that movie. But it is actually very interesting. And this one character in the movie, she's a little girl and she's really obsessed with Friends. She wants to know how the movie ends. And do you know the movie I'm talking about?
I saw that movie.
Okay.
Something.
Leave the World Behind or something like that.
Yes, something like that.
Yeah.
And the whole point not the whole point of the movie, but the big thing in the movie is it doesn't have an ending.
Right.
And I was so mad watching that movie.
I
was so mad that it just ended.
Yeah, I was really upset by that too.
And that was the whole plot of what you're talking about is the girl wanted to see how the series ended.
Yes. And she, spoiler alert, managed to actually find out the answer to that question, but we don't get to see anything that happens after that.
Yeah, in the world of that universe. Yeah, that was a weird movie. It was a good movie.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I was so angry with the ending. I was mad. I was so mad that we just spent, and it was like 3 hours.
Yeah.
And then it ends.
Yep.
Without
resolving anything.
Any ending.
Right.
It's over.
Mm-hmm. All right, so
hopefully this story has a better conclusion than that.
I hope so. So he ends up leaving them, wanders around the hotel. He's looking at himself in the elevator, like the door. He's seeing his reflection, and he's wearing a robe. He ends up just kind of collapsing, and
he spends the night sleeping like in front of the elevators. And I was really confused by this. You're at a really nice hotel.
Yeah.
There's probably some amazing suites here.
Mm-hmm.
And probably tons and tons of, just average okay rooms.
Yeah.
Why is he sleeping on the floor in the hallway?
I don't know.
Why are you not finding someplace better to spend the night?
I don't know.
I was just really confused by this whole scene with the elevator. Like, what's happening?
It's maybe finally clicking into his mind that the world is over. I guess he understood that intellectually, but here he's getting it emotionally, maybe, perhaps.
And that made him want to sleep on the floor?
I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Did he drink too much? Like, was he drunk?
I was really confused. I was like, is the elevator not actually working? It sounded like it's working.
Yeah.
And if it's not working, can't you take the stairs?
Right.
I don't know. I didn't get this part of it.
So
it might be a me problem, though.
Yeah, he ends up waking up the next morning, and he is fully dressed when he ends up wandering around the motel.
He's searching for his new companions,
right?
Calling out for them.
He eventually ends up finding them.
He finds Anne, specifically, in a store. She's trying on fur coats over her naked body. There's some more nudity for you.
Yes, and, I praised Alexander Ludwig for his physique, and this actress is equally pretty attractive.
Yeah, we get to see a lot of her in this moment.
Yes, I did not mind that whatsoever, just so you know. So he ends up having breakfast with them. She reveals that she stayed with Mitch or
Milton.
After his wife died. I'm not going to have to remember his name after this podcast because he's just going to be gone.
So basically they're both just happened to be in this hotel. Milt was there with his wife. She died.
Yeah.
Anne was here. Milton said earlier they were both here on business, but his wife was with him, so I'm not sure how that works. But she was here. And we heard, was it in this scene? I have in my notes somewhere. Something medicinal. She's here for a conference.
I'm pretty sure it's a scene.
Holistic medicine, maybe. I'm not seeing it in my notes, but it's in here somewhere. But her family was back home. So she actually watched her family die on Zoom.
Oh, yes.
Like, that's sad.
Yeah.
But so she's here by herself. And when everybody in the hotel died except for her and Milt, they just kind of like hooked up.
Yeah.
Because why not? We're the last two people in the world.
Right. Yeah.
This is the scene where so Milt's cooking and the two of them are talking, Ish and Anne.
Oh yeah.
And he asks her about the hotel. He's like, it was full, wasn't it? And she says it was about 80% full. And once the HVAC wears off, you're gonna really smell that.
Okay.
So basically, like, they tucked all the bodies away.
They themselves did
I
that?
mean, I guess, right? Because if the place was full and there's not a single body we've seen, that means they've hidden all the bodies.
Well, that is very unpleasant sounding.
Yeah, so that was a lot of work.
So is there like some room in this hotel that you don't want to go in because
probably several of them if they're saying the hotel was 80% full.
Ah, okay.
So I mean that to me answers my question about why is there nobody on the floor, because they've cleared it out because they don't want to be around the bodies.
Okay. At the same time, it doesn't really explain the rest of Las Vegas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It explains this building
right
a little bit. But why aren't you turning the machines off?
Right. Yeah, I mean, at least some of them. So Ish plans to leave, but Milt would like him to stay. Apparently, Milt and Ann have a pact where they will eventually end up killing themselves.
Yeah, so he explains, like, there's enough electricity left in the generators for a couple of weeks. And they've got food and drink and everything they need to get to the end. And Ish is like, well, what do you mean the end? And he shows him a gun on his hip. And he's basically like, yeah, like, why would we want to live? Like, we're just going to enjoy ourselves for a little bit longer. And then, we're going to check out. Because what do we have to live for?
Check out of this hotel.
Everybody we know and love is gone. So what do we have to, like... And Ish is like, listen, all of your math is about this hotel.
Right.
There's supplies out there. He says even the strip alone is enough to keep you alive for a decade.
Right.
And Milt says, why would we want to live? So yeah, they've given up, but they're just kind of partying a little bit first.
Right.
And what he's telling Ish is like, well, don't leave because Ann really wants you, and you're just going to make my life easier if you just kind of like stick around.
Sleep with her. And
exactly.
Then,
exactly. Yeah. Like, just play your part. We all have a role to play.
Look, I'm kind of an older man here, and it did strike me how much Martin Donovan has aged since I saw him in Tenet. Like, he looks significantly older than...
Don't we all?
Yeah. than he did in that movie, which was not that long ago. But, then again, there's, like, how long it takes to produce a movie and so on and so forth. But,
right.
Yeah.
So Ish goes and talks to Ann. Mm-hmm. And he tells her, I can take you away from here. He's basically like, you don't gotta kill yourself. That dude crazy, but, like, just come with me and we'll leave and we'll go, like, have a life.
Yep, and she is not having it.
Yeah, she specifically was like, I wouldn't go with you if you were the last man on Earth, which you might be. Like,
pretty much. And so I'm kind of confused as to why her attitude is that.
I think it's because she already decided she's going to die.
She just wants to die. So.
But she's like, but you're welcome to stay. And she's like, I promise I'll make you feel something.
Right. Do you really want to feel something for someone who's just going to kill themselves? Like...
Yeah, I mean, it's
you want to get an emotional.
It's a really weird situation, right?
Yeah.
But she says she's only here to do one last thing, and when he asks what that is, she says to die, of course.
Right.
And she thinks like this. She resolved this whole conversation, so she starts kissing him and thinks like he's gonna stay and sleep with her.
Yeah, my note here is she tries to seduce him, but no, he's not.
He rejects her.
Yeah.
Which I don't think she understands what's happening.
Right.
And it's because Ann and Milt have been living in this for 3 weeks.
Right. And
they moved who knows how many dead bodies. They're in a completely different state of mind than Ish is.
Right. Yeah. Ish still has some hope.
Yeah.
And, we'll see how his story progresses and if he ever ends up losing hope or not. Or continues to basically want to try to continue living.
Right.
But, yeah, so he ends up just leaving the hotel. And as he's leaving, I'm pretty sure this is where we see the MGM sign, by the way.
I'll have to look for that.
Yeah. And he hears a gunshot, which... Would he have heard that?
Probably. He's just outside.
Right, but where in the hotel were they?
Maybe they were close.
Okay.
We don't know.
So,
he hears a gunshot, followed by a second.
Yes, so
meaning... One of them decided, we're not waiting 3 more weeks.
Right.
And killed them both.
Right.
And it's not really clear who did it. I think Ann did it because he just rejected her.
Oh.
So and she was like, fuck this. I don't want to stick around another day with this crazy old man that doesn't cook well.
Right. All right. So he drives on. He almost ends up hitting a dog.
Yeah, he's speeding, right? I mean, why not? There's 0 cars on the road. I don't know why there's 0 cars.
Right.
In The Walking Dead, there were cars stranded everywhere. Mm-hmm. But here, this is one difference. There's not a single car in sight on the side of the road anywhere.
Right.
Every single human being did shelter in place like they were told to.
Mm-hmm.
So he's speeding, and he doesn't know what to do with himself, and he's very upset. And yeah, he almost hits the dog that's standing in the middle of the road, but manages to stop just in time.
And he has a new companion.
He calls the dog Lucky.
Lucky, yes.
Because he didn't make him go a splat.
Yes. My favorite reference. But yeah, that's a Quantum Leap reference that I've been saying for the last 40 years because of that episode of television. But so he finds a house. Well, actually, he doesn't find this house. He goes back home.
So he puts the dog in his car and he's like, "Okay, Lucky, where should we go?"
Right.
Because when he was leaving the casino, like when he was still talking to Anne, he was like, "There's a whole world out there.
Right.
We can go anywhere, do anything. Like there's no limitations. The Earth, the whole world is ours to take.
Right.
If we're the only humans left, right?
Yeah.
So now he's with his dog. He's like, "Where should we go?" And he's like, "Oh, I guess we should just go home." Because he doesn't know what to do.
Right, yeah. I mean, he
his
traveling.
whole attitude changed after the only other 2 humans he's found killed themselves.
Right.
He no longer feels like exploring the world. He just goes home.
Right.
Which is kind of sad in and of itself.
It also kind of makes sense. Like, maybe you'd like to stick around the familiar so that you have something
right
of your old life.
At least for now.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I've watched The Walking Dead. So you got to imagine there are pockets of other people out there, and in a post-apocalyptic situation, people are your biggest threat.
Right, exactly.
So maybe you don't want to find more.
Right, yes.
At this point.
Yep.
So Ish and Lucky go to the library.
Ah, yes.
And he collects a whole bunch of books about topics that are helpful in survival. Topics such as solar power, fishing, canning, ecology. He takes all these books home and he starts studying. He's going to learn how to survive.
By reading books.
By reading books, yes.
Well, isn't that convenient?
I mean, we already know he's like,
a smart guy.
A smart guy.
Yeah.
Like, he had, all these geology. He had all these geology books at the beginning. Like his topic of study.
So he ends up,
he tells the dog.
Yeah.
He says, I like this line. He says, "I don't know what we're going to do, but we're going to do it together."
Isn't that
this dog might have saved his life.
Yeah, probably.
Because he's not alone now.
Yeah.
Yeah, dog is man's best friend.
Always. So, he ends up waking up at his house. He ends up looking out his window, and then he notices some smoke.
Well, you skipped a lot.
Did I?
You skipped a year.
A year?
Yeah, we have a whole year montage between the moment that he goes home and what you're talking about.
Okay.
We get a text overlay that says a year has gone by.
Oh, yeah.
Did you miss that?
I did miss that.
Okay, so it's been a year now.
Yep.
And he's going stir crazy. So we have this whole kind of montage of just seeing what he does with his days. He says, "I wonder if the Earth even noticed that I'm still here." He's been isolated, just him and his dog, for a year surviving. And we see him, he's making coffee, and he's heating a Pop-Tart using a Bunsen burner, because there's no electricity.
Yep.
He's driving his car in circles around the cul-de-sac.
Yes.
And my note is, why? If you feel like driving around, at least drive around a block. Why are you literally driving in a 10-foot circle? I don't understand.
So he still has gas after a year, especially if he's wasting it like that?
Well, there's a lot of cars.
Okay, fair.
Like, all of them.
You just find
There's gas stations.
Yeah.
I mean, until the gas goes sour, you can use there's a lot of gas out there.
How long does it take for gas to expire?
In The Walking Dead, it took about a decade.
Okay.
But I don't know how accurate that is.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, he's going crazy is what we're getting from this montage. Is he's driving in circles, he's going for a run every day, he's chopping wood, but you can tell he's losing it. He's not going to be able to go on like this in isolation with just a dog for much longer.
Right.
And that's when one day he's standing in the balcony, and we've seen him standing in the same spot looking out. This is his thing. He's always standing there, always looking. And then one day he looks out and he sees the smoke coming from a chimney in the distance.
And that indicates that there's another person
There's another person out there. He wasn't going to make it much longer without human contact.
And so that is where the episode ends.
And pretty sure that smoke's coming from our lead female.
Probably.
Who we're going to meet next week.
Mm-hmm.
Who I don't have information on her in front of me. We'll talk about her when we meet her.
Yes.
Now, absolutely. I haven't watched the episode yet, but my guess is the next episode is going to focus on her. At least half the episode is going to be like, here's her first year.
That would make sense.
Of learning like who she is, how she's got into the end of, her experience with the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
And then they'll meet up, either halfway through or all the way at the end of the episode. That's my guess.
That would make sense. I mean, that would be a interesting way to tell a story, and similar to other properties of the same kind.
Right.
But yeah. So yeah, I'm looking forward to next week. It should be interesting getting to know this new person that we don't get to know. And hopefully we end up seeing the two of them meet up. But,
I mean, I know we're going to eventually see them meet up because they're the two stars of the show. They're on the poster together.
Right.
So...
I mean, it has to happen eventually. Hopefully not.
And there's only 6 episodes altogether, so we got to get going, I think.
Yeah. You got to get moving. All right, so do we have anything else to say about this episode?
That is all I have. Again, it's really weird talking about an episode of television that only had 3 people in it, and only one of them survived the episode.
Yes, yeah. Basically, the only person that we know that's going to continue in this series is the lead actor.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's a weird place to be after. And again, it's something to compare to Walking Dead. Walking Dead ended with just our main character, Rick. He had met Morgan in the pilot episode. Morgan's not going to come back into the story for like 3 years. We'll see him again later. We're not going to see these characters again later because there were 2... I mean, I don't know. Maybe both those gunshots was one person and the other one's still alive. That's possible.
Maybe that was a total fake out.
But 2 gunshots, you'd expect that means they're both dead.
Right.
It's totally possible, though. One of them just shot the other one 2 times and they're going to come back in 3 years and be a crazy person like Morgan was. You never know.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
Although it's a limited series, so...
Yeah, we can't do that too much.
So yeah, I'm excited to see where this story is going and the story they want to tell, and meeting the rest of our cast that we haven't done yet.
So I'm hoping there's more scenes of people interacting.
There are going to be people interacting because again, there's the whole cast is like 8 or 10 people. So
I mean,
we got to get to them sooner.
I did
later.
enjoy this episode. I just find it hard to talk about, like driving around.
Right.
Yeah. It would make it easier if something happens in these scenes where
more interaction.
Yes, exactly. That's what I mean.
And I think I'm guessing we're not going to meet like the rest of the cast until episode 3.
Okay.
I feel like next week we're just going to meet the lead actress, and then I don't think it'll be till episode 3 that we meet everybody else, the other group that they encounter or whatever it turns out that how these people are introduced.
Gotcha.
Because I don't know. It looks like that's where it's going.
All right. Do we have anything else to say about this episode?
I don't have anything else, but yeah, I'm very curious to know what everybody thinks about Earth Abides.
Yes. If you leave a comment, we will definitely shout you out when we get to the point where you watching and us watching meets up. So yeah, leave your comment and we'll shout you out, presuming, of course, that you leave a comment that's constructive and not like super mean or negative.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, no, you're allowed to have opinions.
Yeah.
But you're not allowed, you're allowed to do whatever you want, but we're not going to repeat things that we don't deem are repeatable.
Right.
Put it that way. But yeah, if you have something, like you said, constructive, an actual opinion and not just bad words and hatred, because, that happens sometimes.
Yes.
We'll talk about what you got to say.
Mm-hmm. All right. Stacie can be reached at?
I can be reached on Twitter, X, Instagram, and Threads at TVN Coupon Talk.
If you like this video and want to support the channel, there are more ways to do so. You can follow me on Twitter at Core Productions. You can join one of the Core Productions Facebook pages. You can buy something from the Core Productions store on Zazzle. You can buy me a copy. You can join the Core Productions membership for 99 cents a month. And of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video, as well as subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell so you're notified when new content drops. This is Dave and Stacie from Core Productions, signing off.